You know that feeling when you walk into a room and immediately sense something's wrong? That's exactly what happened when the palace doors opened that morning. The world was waiting for another polished royal appearance, another perfectly choreographed display of tradition. What they got instead was a moment that would quietly rewrite the future of the British monarchy. William and Catherine weren't just showing up as the heir and his wife anymore. Something had shifted. The way they carried themselves, the authority in their presence, even the way the light seemed to follow them through those ancient halls. This wasn't preparation. This was power, already settled, already certain. Royal insiders who'd spent decades reading between the lines of palace protocol went silent, because what unfolded that day didn't just challenge expectations, it shattered them completely. So here's the real question. Was this moment planned all along, or did we just witness the exact instant when the crown decided its own future? The morning started quietly enough. Soft light filtered through Westminster Abbey's stained glass windows, painting colors across stone that's absorbed centuries of English history. Coronations, royal weddings, moments of crisis, and celebration. These walls have seen it all. And now they were about to witness something that would be debated for years to come. The official story was simple: a blessing service, a reassurance to the nation during uncertain times. By early 2025, whispers about King Charles's health had grown from quiet concern to constant background noise. Ever since his coronation in May 2023, questions had followed him like shadows. So the palace did what the palace does best. It organized a moment designed to project strength without saying a word. No speeches about stability. No press releases about continuity. Just a gathering carefully orchestrated, meant to show that everything was exactly as it should be. And at the center of it all stood William and Catherine. Look at William now, and you won't find traces of the young prince who once seemed uncomfortable in his own skin. That restlessness has been replaced by something harder to define but impossible to miss. He's learned patience from his grandmother, the late Queen Elizabeth, who understood that royal power is often most effective when it's quietest. He's learned discipline from his father, who waited longer than any heir in British history. And somewhere along the way, William learned how to carry the weight of inevitability without letting it crush him. Catherine stood beside him, and if you'd only been half paying attention, you might have missed what was really happening. Because she wasn't just standing there looking elegant, she commanded that space. Her return to public life following health challenges in 2024 had transformed her image. The gentle, almost cautious presence she'd projected for years had transformed into something much more formidable: resolve. Every movement, every detail communicated reassurance and endurance. But underneath all that polished ceremony, tension was building. Conversations about succession that had always felt theoretical suddenly felt urgent, real, unavoidable. The service itself was meant to quiet those conversations, to show unity, strength. Tradition holding firm, symbols have power after all, and even silence can communicate volumes. Then came the moment that changed everything. Queen Camila was supposed to enter with the king, side by side, projecting unity, except she didn't. Her chair sat empty, a small detail that most people watching at home probably didn't even notice. But inside that among the people who understand that royal protocol exists for deeper reasons, that empty chair spoke volumes. Camilla's journey hasn't been easy. From outsider to scandal to grudging acceptance to consort, she's fought for every inch of respect she's gained. After Queen Elizabeth died in 2022, something shifted in Camilla. She stopped being content with the role others imagined for her and started defining it herself. More visible, more assertive, more determined to matter. William noticed. Of course he noticed. His reaction was controlled, but those who know him could see it. The slight tension in his jaw, the way his shoulders set. Catherine picked up on it instantly. She always does. Her presence expanded almost imperceptibly, filling the visual space, steadying the moment. To the people watching who'd spent years navigating palace politics, that empty chair wasn't just an absence. It was a statement. It hinted at struggles most of us never see. Battles fought over influence and visibility in an institution that's supposed to appear seamless from the outside. The Abbey remained quiet, reverent, but underneath that calm surface, Something had been exposed. The monarchy was trying so hard to project certainty, but certainty requires unity, and unity in that moment had fractured. There's a specific kind of defiance that doesn't announce itself with raised voices. It's quieter than that. More dangerous because it refuses to acknowledge the rules everyone else is following. That's what hung in the air of Westminster Abbey that morning. The media had spent weeks building up William and Catherine, the future of the monarchy. The steady hands. Every expectation had been carefully shaped, and the ceremony was supposed to confirm what everyone already believed. Then, a sharp, uninvited sound echoed through the abbey. The great wooden doors swung open with urgent force, shattering the illusion of control. Heads turned before anyone gave permission. A figure advanced, determined, unmoved by the shock rippling across the pews. This was no symbolic entrance planned in the order of service. It was a declaration. Camilla's heels struck marble too quickly, too loudly, carrying an insistence that cut through the fading choir. Ignoring the discreet route prepared for her, she crossed the central path, breaching the invisible line protecting the Prince and Princess of Wales. Faces stiffened. Clergy hesitated. No one intervened, unprepared for such defiance. As she drew closer to the sanctuary, the air tightened. William stood unmoving, his posture flawless, the discipline of duty holding him in place. Only the tightening of his jaw hinted at the strain beneath the surface. Catherine noticed everything. She sensed the uneven breathing beside her, the subtle effort to edge forward, the attempt to reclaim space and attention. When Camila shifted to interrupt the camera's view, Catherine responded with nothing more than a brief, precise glance. It was enough. What followed unsettled even the most seasoned observers. As the Archbishop prepared the invocation, Camila reached toward the sacred objects, overstepping a line reserved only for the sovereign and his heir. Her words to the nearby clergy were low, urgent, and unseen by the public. Yet their effect was immediate. The rhythm of the service fractured. Silence fell where prayer should have continued. In a place defined by continuity, the moment exposed something raw and unresolved. Beneath the gold, the robes, and the ancient stone, a struggle unfolded not for ceremony, but for relevance. By the time the service resumed, everyone understood that something irreversible had occurred. The Abbey would stand as it always had. But the balance within the monarchy had shifted quietly, unmistakably, and in full view of history. The stillness inside Westminster Abbey was so complete it felt unnatural, as though time itself had been instructed to wait. Clergy who had spent their lives rehearsing ceremony by memory stood unmoving, caught between instinct and disbelief. Hidden lenses caught what protocol usually shields. Tightened jaws, startled glances, hands clasped too firmly. Among the assembled royals, confusion spread quietly but visibly. This was not merely a disruption. It was a fracture opening in the heart of a sacred moment. King Charles saw more than the pause. He read the room with the sharp awareness of a man who had waited decades for this role. The fatigue that once followed him through public appearances had disappeared. In its place stood a ruler fully present, alert to consequences. He noticed his son's uncertainty, the quiet composure of his daughter-in-law, and the unmistakable loss of control. This moment was not isolated. It was the echo of earlier warnings, smaller missteps that had been ignored or forgiven. Silence stretched until it became unbearable. When the king moved, it was neither rushed nor dramatic. His shoes struck the stone floor with deliberate certainty as he advanced toward the sanctuary, each step carrying meaning. The crown he reached for was not the one that dazzles in portrait. It was smaller, symbolic, heavy with promise rather than display. In lifting it, Charles was not correcting a momentary error. He was asserting control over a narrative that threatened to unravel. The disruption meant to secure status had instead provided justification for a long-considered shift. What unfolded next would be discussed in hushed tones long after the Abbey emptied. In that suspended instant, power quietly changed shape. Tradition survived, but not untouched. The precious metal caught the light in a way that silenced the vast hall. Its glow sharp and unforgiving, reflecting not ceremony, but resolve. Beneath the high arches, history shifted without announcement. King Charles did not wait for instruction or signal. He advanced on his own terms, the symbolic crown held firmly in his grasp, turning the ancient ritual into something deeply personal. In that instant, the ceremony ceased to be about tradition alone. It became an unmistakable statement of intent. William remained still, aware that every movement would echo beyond the moment. His posture spoke of readiness rather than hesitation. A man long prepared for a destiny that once felt distant. Catherine stood beside him, composed yet alert, fully understanding the meaning layered into the king's deliberate approach. This was not symbolic theater. It was recognition granted openly and without apology, confirming her role as a central pillar of the monarchy's future. The king's hand showed the marks of age. Yet when the crown was raised between them, it steadied with surprising strength. That quiet gesture carried the force of generations. No anthem followed. No voice broke the stillness. The power of the moment came from restraint, from the deliberate absence of spectacle. 3 lives bound by duty and blood intersected in a way that reshaped the balance of influence within the royal family. Across the aisle, Camila stood frozen. The positioning was impossible to miss. The act unfolded directly before her, stripping away any illusion of shared command. In that instant, years of careful maneuvering dissolved. The message was clear. Authority did not drift or negotiate. It was claimed and confirmed. As the ceremony moved forward, its original purpose felt distant. William and Catherine stood changed, carrying a presence that required no validation. The Abbey bore witness once more to the monarchy's ability to evolve without breaking. Long after the final prayers faded, one truth remained unmistakable. The center of gravity had shifted, and the path ahead had been unmistakably marked by the king himself. The gates of Buckingham Palace closed behind the royal convoy, sealing in more than just the echoes of cheering crowds. Inside the palace walls, a weight settled that could not be waved away by ceremony or tradition. When the king withdrew to his private office, there was no gentle easing out of pageantry. The silent Camilla stood opposite him, still carrying the urgency of the Abbey, but the familiar comfort between them had vanished. To Charles, the incident was not personal drama. It was a public wound inflicted at the very place where continuity was meant to be sacred. Rather than raise his voice, the king chose precision. With calm resolve, he reached for schedules already mapped months ahead. One by one, changes were made, names crossed out. Roles reassigned, each decision landed with quiet authority. Orders moved swiftly through private secretaries and senior aides. By the end of that afternoon, Camilla's public presence had been drastically reduced. It was not a public dismissal, but something colder. A controlled distancing that sent a clear message throughout the palace. Elsewhere in the building, Prince William and Catherine were called in not as observers, but as anchors. The tone shifted when the king addressed his son. Responsibility was no longer theoretical. From that point forward, the Prince and Princess of Wales were to lead the coordination of key royal appearances and public messaging. By evening, the palace was already adapting. Staff quietly updated documents. New schedules circulated. The balance of visibility had changed, and everyone felt it. What the public never saw was the speed of it all. The way tradition bent without breaking, guided by a king determined to protect the institution above personal loyalty. In a single day, the monarchy's internal order was reshaped, not through spectacle, but through firm, unmistakable control. The hush that settled over the palace halls felt deliberate, as if the building itself understood that something permanent had shifted. After the Westminster Abbey ceremony, the monarchy didn't spiral into confusion. Instead, it moved with calm urgency, like a system correcting its course. Orders flowed swiftly. Power was not announced. It was redirected, and its new direction pointed firmly toward Kensington Palace. Within days, William's working rooms became unusually busy. Papers that once traveled through several layers of approval now reached him first. This was not rehearsal for a future role. It was authority in real time. William approached the responsibility with sharp focus shaped by discipline and preparation. Meetings were shorter, decisions clearer, and delays no longer tolerated. The waiting period was over. Alongside him, Catherine reshaped the monarchy's outward face. She stepped beyond ceremony and symbolism, taking an active role in shaping how the institution spoke to the public. In a moment when uncertainty could have weakened public trust, Catherine offered steadiness. Elsewhere, the atmosphere was strikingly different. At Clarence House, Camilla's world narrowed. Her name appeared less often on schedules. By mid-2024, her absence from major state events was no longer subtle. It was understood. King Charles acted with clarity that surprised even his critics. Rather than allowing personal loyalty to blur judgment, he chose restraint. By quietly empowering his son and daughter-in-law, Charles stabilized a monarchy that had endured years of strain. Public reaction followed quickly. Polls reflected renewed confidence. A nation tired of internal conflict responded to firmness and unity. What unfolded was not dramatic in the traditional sense, yet the transformation was unmistakable. Authority didn't arrive with trumpets or formal announcements. It settled into rooms through posture, through silence, through certainty. William and Catherine moved through public life with a calm that felt earned rather than rehearsed. By the early 2020s, their appearances were no longer symbolic gestures of preparation. They carried real consequences. Each engagement hinted that power was operating in full view, steady and assured. William's presence had sharpened. He listened more than he spoke. Yet when decisions were made, they landed with precision. Catherine matched that strength with a different force. Her influence didn't rely on command but on clarity. Together, they projected unity that felt immovable. Public trust followed naturally. The monarchy, long accused of drifting, suddenly appeared anchored again. That ceremony, held in London and framed as reassurance, became something else entirely. It was meant to calm nerves. Instead, it clarified reality. Power had already moved. What unfolded beneath those ancient vaults wasn't chaos. It was correction. When King Charles stepped forward with the crown, the moment carried weight beyond ritual. It signaled resolve. William and Catherine didn't claim authority. It was placed upon them publicly and without retreat. History rarely announces its turning points. Sometimes it allows them to unfold quietly. By the time the nation fully understood, the transformation was complete. The crown hadn't been seized or contested. It had simply settled where it now belonged, leaving behind the tension of the past and stepping confidently into a future already in motion. So what do you think this first appearance truly revealed about power, timing, and the future of the crown?